You hear what's happening in Brazil right now?
What's happening in Brazil?
In Brazil, they are trying to get Twitter to suspend the accounts of political opponents.
Right.
And Twitter's not willing to do it, and so they're going to lose all ad revenue in Brazil, likely. I don't know how they're going to do it, but they're advocating for censorship at such a high level that it's becoming like it's a very strange crisis because it's not being reported in mainstream media. You're not hearing about it unless it's trending on Twitter.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where you go, okay, what is the news, guys? Because
Yeah.
this is like a big global event. If they're really trying to remove, like, imagine if Biden all of a sudden removed Rand Paul and Ted Cruz and had these people removed from social media. You can no longer post studies that conflict with the FDA's reports. You can no longer post anything. You're gone.
Yeah.
Your voice is erased. No one would accept that.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's insane. But that's apparently what's happening right now in Brazil.
It's the role of social media in all of this, and it's great that Elon Musk's Twitter is standing up to it, but because the role of social media over the past few years has been so sinister, and you mentioned the Twitter files, the pre-Musk Twitter regime,
Yeah.
which was more than willing to do the bidding of the American government, which was a complete and utter destruction of First Amendment rights. Just because the government went behind closed doors and said to its friends in Silicon Valley, please take this stuff down, that doesn't make it any less of a government intervention into people's freedom to speak and freedom to publish.
Right.
So governments they've outsourced censorship to private companies. And we've seen the same thing in the UK, where social media companies are forever being called before politicians and they're being instructed to take this down, take that down. So I think governments who are too cowardly to censor through law, because they know it would be unpopular, they often use the back channel of private companies. They outsource the right to censorship to these private companies, and that's happened in a huge number of times over the past decade. But it amounts to the same thing, which is state censorship with the connivance and the complicity of these private companies. So I think one of the great crises of our times, actually, is the crisis of freedom of speech. Because freedom of speech really is the thing that is the best guard against irrationalism. It's the best guard against hysteria. It's the best guard against things like giving kids puberty blockers when they shouldn't be taking them, and against the men parading around in women's changing rooms, and against COVID lockdowns, and against all the other manias that have afflicted our societies over the past decade. Freedom of speech is the best guard against all of that. It won't successfully slay all of them, but it creates that space in which a dissenting voice can say, hold on, let's wait a minute. Let's just think about this. Let's ask if it's correct to give a confused 12-year-old kid a drug that will fuck up his body and likely make him infertile and ruin his bones and possibly make him depressed. Let's just wait and think and ask, is this the right thing to do? And it was the crushing of all those voices of dissent on all of these issues that allowed the ideology to sweep over our society with such success. So time and again, in relation to Brazil that you've just mentioned, and in relation to our countries too, I just think if we unleash free speaking and allow people to express their dissenting views, a lot of these problems, they might still happen, but we would have the opportunity to rein them in.
Yeah.